Shout out to Hermano Pierre on Patreon for 4 months of support.
Get weekly goods, tutorial files, mockups, templates, items from my store, and more, as well as supporting the free tutorials on this channel. Check out my Patreon in the description below.
What's up guys, Qehzy or Noah here bringing you guys another tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this looping animation in Cinema 4D. My buddy Joseph and I did a quick little duel to practice our animation skills. He's been doing daily animations over on his Twitter. He's an After Effects guy, so if you guys are interested in After Effects or animation, be sure to check out his Twitter and his YouTube. He also makes tutorials. But I thought I would share with you guys the technique for creating this tunnel animation in Cinema 4D. It's a pretty easy thing to do, so any level of Cinema 4D designer can do it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, by the way. I come out with tutorials almost weekly or every 2 weeks or so, and I'm releasing a lot of free goods as well in sort of packs and stuff, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. It doesn't hurt to subscribe. I'm just giving out free tutorials, so you'll either want to learn something or you won't. Subscribing doesn't hurt. You can always unsubscribe. I appreciate anyone that does subscribe and all those subscribers that have been with me for this long YouTube journey. So subscribe, like the video, and let's get started. Alright, so first things first, let's create a new project. And by the way, if this video hits 100 likes, I will put the original project down in the description for you guys to download. I'm going to change some of the render settings real quick. So this was actually a 600 by 600 project since it was a quick little Twitter GIF. You guys can make the settings whatever you'd like. I made my timeline 300 frames, so it's 10 seconds. 30 frames a second, obviously. And well, let's render all the frames when the time comes. Save as a MP4 or .mov or you could also do an MOV. And we will want, or we don't need alpha channel selected, multipass, whatever. We'll filter it as an animation, and everything else is really up to you guys. I had ambient occlusion checked as well as the caustics. So everything else though, up to you guys. All these really affect render time. My render time was about a day, and that's because there's displacement maps on the textures, so just fill it out, give quick little stills or test renders with some stills, see how the render is going, how it looks for you guys. It's all dependent on how you kind of set everything up in the lighting. I try to keep mine simple since it wasn't going to be high detail. I didn't really go all out on the lighting and the render settings, kept it pretty basic. But okay, now that that's all set up, let's go ahead and create our shape, which will be our tube. So let's go to our shapes or our models and get a tube. Orientation we're going to set up as Z, and we're going to just adjust everything and zoom in here a little bit. So this is quite thick, too thick for what we want, so let's bump up the inner radius to about 80, so it's like a 20 centimeter thickness. We could actually go up higher to 90. That should be alright. Outer radius, yeah, we'll keep this all the same. Rotation segments, now this is the important one because this will tell us what our shape is. So I went with 3 and went with a triangular shape, but you guys could do whatever you would want. You could do a pentagon, hexagon, septagon, octagon, whatever you want. We're gonna do the standard triangle though. And once we have that, we actually want to rotate it so it's pretty, or it's not pretty even, so it's even and like the flat part is at the bottom. So I'm going to rotate mine 90. Depending on the shape, you're going to have to rotate it a different degree amount, or you could leave it as is, up to you guys there. So let's go back to this. Height, 100 might be okay. We could go with it. That's fine. But yeah, let's go to display shade or lines and see how this is looking. Okay, that's fine for us. Let's go ahead and duplicate this now. Command C, Command V, and hide one of them. And then on the duplicated one, we're going to press C because we're going to make some small changes to this. So let's go to our live selection and our polygon selection. Press V, select, and loop selection. And to make the shape a little more interesting rather than just a straightforward triangle, I selected the two inside parts and I right clicked, and where is it at? Inner, extrude inner, and I went in a little bit. You could also come over to preserve groups and check that to make them individual. It's up to you. Actually, I'm going to do that because I think it might look a little cooler and maybe a little different. And I'm going to right click and go to extrude, and you can either extrude them out or extrude them in. Completely up to you. I originally did extrude in, but maybe I extrude out a little bit just to mix it up, maybe make it look a little more interesting. I don't know, that's kind of cool. Kind of getting Star Wars vibes, although not as detailed, but pretty basic setup right now. Let's get the selection tool again, V select, actually go back, make sure our tube is selected, V select, loop selection, and let's do this first one. And what we're actually going to do here, instead of making it beveled or interesting or what have you, we're going to right click and go to split. And what that will do is split off that selected polygon onto its own object, its own layer. And what we're going to do then is go to the selection V, select. Oh, make sure the polygons are selected. Okay, well it's already selected, so let's right click and go to extrude and extrude it in just a bit. So right now you probably barely can tell, but if I go to material and make this like pink and add that, you can see it a little better. Yeah, so this will act as our light, but let's make a few adjustments. I'm gonna get the model select and our scale and make this thinner like that, and move it back out to where it was, so right about there. And I think we're pretty good then. I'm happy with that. Let's double click this material and set it up appropriately. So we don't want the color checked, we don't want the reflectance checked, we just want the luminance checked. And we are going to make that a pinkish purple. It's pretty easy. It has a bit too much of a bevel, so I wonder if I can increase the size. Yeah, okay. I increased the size a little bit. Looking pretty good. And we want to add one more light, which will be blue. And you could either create that itself on the back, or we could just duplicate the tube we already have, Command C, Command V, and bring it on back. And I'm actually thinking we make this one a little thinner than the pink one. Cool. And let's duplicate that pink material and make this one blue, or like a light blue, cyan almost. Add it to that guy. Alright, cool. Now, one thing I did in mine originally was I duplicated the main object here, so Command C, Command V, the main gray one that is right now, and I increased its size and also increased its width, just so it encompassed everything a little more. Now, I'm not sure if we'll be able to use it. I don't know how it'll look because it took a lot of tinkering, so I don't know. I don't have the method written out for how to do this, but we'll just come in and modify some of these bits. So this part is already selected. If you don't already have it selected, just go to V, loop selection, and select this first looped polygon, and then hold shift and do it to the back one as well. And we're just going to do the same thing we did earlier, extrude inner, right click, and then we'll extrude out this time, like so. And now this whole thing is a little more interesting. And if this bigger shape works and looks alright, we're gonna actually put one of the blue lights there. But for right now, we're just gonna see how this looks. I'm not sure we'll be able to pull off the bigger shape. It just depends how this goes. But we can actually come in here too and make it bigger. Maybe have it less that big, or have it less long. Something like that. Actually, that's too much. Let's go back to the original. We can make adjustments later if we're not feeling it. But we do have to add our material to this now. So I'm going to go to my materials pack V8, the mega materials pack. And I'm going to get my metal displaced material. I'm going to add that. And I'm going to add an abstract chip material here. And what I'm going to do is go to that chip and get the displacement layer and copy it. So copy shader, go to my metal and paste the shader. And I'm going to paste in bump as well. So if you guys have my materials pack V8, you can go ahead and do that. If you don't, you can create this displacement map or something similar to it in JS placement. I have a tutorial on it that covers everything, so be sure to check that out if you need help. But this is basically going to give us some cool techie, almost like a Star Wars feel. Basically, we're just going to be adding a little bit of a greeble displacement. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the chip 3. The metal displacement material, I'm going to be modifying the reflection because the reflection's a little too much in this case, but I'm just going to go ahead and turn it down. Turn down all the reflections to, yeah, so this is 22 and this is 15. And the color we'll just call it okay for now. Maybe we even copy the displacer there. I don't know how that's gonna look. Maybe we bump down the mix strength just so it's not anything crazy to 25. We'll see how this looks. We'll probably have to make adjustments, but let's add that material then to our two tubes that aren't the glowing tubes. One thing we will have to do real quick though is add more segments to these because the displacement maps will look really bad with so few segments or polygons. So let's get the live selection and get our polygon selection tool and go to V, select, and this time we want fill. And we just want to fill everything. You'll notice the spots that were selected don't get selected when you do this. I don't know why it does that, so if you have a spot selected, hold shift and click somewhere else and everything will be filled then. I don't know why it does that, but let's right click, go to subdivide, right click, subdivide, right click, subdivide. So I do it 3 times just to add a few more segments there. You could do more, but it might get a little too chaotic. And then let's go ahead and do the same thing to the rest of it. So I'm just going to hold shift and click an empty spot so it's all selected. Right click, subdivide, right click, subdivide, right click, subdivide. Okay, cool. We can give this a little test render, but we don't have much set up, so it might look a little funky, but let's just see. It's definitely looking interesting. We might have to mess with the displacement map at some point because it's looking a little too chaotic. I wonder if we make the mix strength a little lower, it'll hide some of that, make it darker overall, but I don't know, I think we're okay. We'll just continue on and make changes at the end. So we want to create our path now for our tunnel. So you could create a straight line path, you could really create anything, it could be just a circle or whatever. I'm going to use a helix because it's the most interesting pathing. I'm kind of going up and down like a roller coaster almost. So let's go to splines and helix. And the height for this, you're going to want to jack up pretty far. So I'm going to do 8300 and that will extend this pretty far. You could do even more. The less you have, the more up and down it feels. The more you have, the more straight it feels. So you want to find the happy medium. I thought this was pretty good at 8300, but again, it's up to you. And you want this to be uniform. Subdivision, you want to bump up to like 400, maybe even more. It's up to you, but we want to create a few versions of these. So this is the first helix. So let's duplicate it. And for the second one, we want to zoom in. I zoomed in too far there. I want to zoom in on our axis and just move it over slightly. So you can barely tell, but these are two separate spines kind of going side by side, and that's for the railing effect we will need later on. And then go to the original, duplicate that, and we'll leave this as helix 2, but helix 1 is the rail one, so we want to delete the one and just call it helix rail. So we know that when we get to the next step, which by the way is filling out all these shapes onto the spline. So to do that, we're going to go to a cloner and get that. We'll use the tube 1 since it's our first shape we used. Add that to the cloner, go to the cloner settings and go to object cloner, or object mode rather. And our object in this case is going to be our original helix here. And you can see it will sprinkle those across the line. Let's go to display and shading, by the way, to get rid of those lines. And then let's go to rail here, and we want that to be the rail, obviously. And that will just smooth everything out. You can't see it right now, but that's what that will do. Let's increase the count until this is basically filled. Now, we can do this all the way until the gaps are filled, but since I'm going to try to add that bigger shape, I actually want a few gaps in this so we can see it. So let's try like 60, and we might have to change that in a second, but we'll try it out first. And I think we're good for that. So let's actually go to the cloner and duplicate it, delete the tube 1, and then duplicate the cloner 2 more times. And let's add our other shapes to it. So the second one is going to be our bigger cloner. And yeah, okay, I think this will work. Let's add our blue and then our pink. So now that's all set up, but we need a camera in there following the path. So let's get a camera, and let's right click on it and go to animation tags, align to spline. You don't want to use these settings, you just want to click the camera and go to align to spline. Get your spline path, which is the helix 2 or the duplicated helix. And on that helix 2, real quick, select it and bump up the subdivision to like 1,000. The more the merrier, because it'll make the camera movement smoother. So keep that in mind, and let's go to the camera and go to our view. You notice our view really sucks. Nothing's going on, we're looking out the back of it. What we want to do is check tangential here, which I really struggle to say, but I think that's how you say it. And you can see it will put us in the tube. And if we move our position, we'll go through it. So we're almost there. So to set up the animation part of it, we want to go to 0 on our timeline and go to position and check our circle there, our little red dot, which is our keyframe. And then go to the very end, which could be whatever. For me, it's 300 frames because I'm doing 10 seconds. And set this to 50. You'll notice when I hit enter, the frame slightly shifted right. That's because it's almost a perfect loop, but it's not quite off. And I'm not sure how to get it perfect, but it's so close to perfect. But when this is orange, be sure to check it red. And then you'll see if I click at 0 and then click back to 300, it's ever so slightly different, but I haven't figured out exactly how to get it perfect. But let's go to the 0 on our timeline, press play, and it will take us through our tunnel, which is looking pretty good. We got to fix our blue and pink lighting, but we're almost there. And you'll notice it's slowed up at the end, and we don't want that, so let's go to window, timeline, open up the plus, open up the drop down arrow, click linear, and we should be good. So I'm going to come into my cloners and just mess around with the one. Okay, so this one here is what's kind of holding everything up. It's blocking our pink lighting. So this is our original shape, but let's go to cloner and maybe we do a count of 30 or half. So it's half as many. And we can also go to the tube, our pink tube, go to our views, and let's go to this top view. And what we're going to do is go to the scaling and scale it down until it's visible, which it is now, and do the same with the blue. Cool. And that should work better. We could also bump up the original back to 60. but it might create enough diversity where you could do 30, and that's really up to you guys what your preference is. I'm gonna try the 30, we'll see how that works. But also I want the blue light to be less frequent, so maybe I set that to 30, or we could do something like 40, and that will kind of stagger it more. Let's give that a play and see how that looks. Okay, so I'm not liking the spacing of the blue and pink, so let's go to the final thing I have to add to this. Let's go to the cloner, let's set it back to 60 like the pink one. Let's go to our view, our top view, and click our blue tube, and let's actually go to the scale first of all and make it a little thinner, because I do want the pink and the blue to be slightly different thicknesses. So let's do that, go to the move tool and go to the enable axis right here, which will change the axis of this. And we'll move it forward, which is moving it back, and we want it about there. So it's kind of evenly spaced. Yeah, that and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Also, I'm thinking, do we have to make the pink a little smaller? I'm just not liking the corners of this. So, let's actually maybe adjust that as well. I don't know if there's a spot it can go where it'll be even. So, I guess we'll leave it alone, and I think we should be alright, but you can see these corners a little off. And I think it's because of the object. But yeah, so there's a lot of tinkering that can be done with this. But I think overall this is a pretty good setup, and there's a lot of pink and blue going on, so maybe I have to bump down the amount of these because it's a little too frequent. Probably go, what, half of what each of these are right now, and then that would be a bit better. But I hope you guys get the gist of this and can create some cool looking tunnel looping animations. And like I said earlier, if we get 100 likes, I'll actually put both these files in the description for you guys to download. They're available now on my Patreon. If you guys want to help support the channel and the free tutorials, be sure to check out my Patreon. Any support is appreciated. Subscribe for more tutorials. Follow me on Twitter at Qehzy. Follow my Instagram, that's Qehzy. Check out my Skillshare for more classes and tutorials and learning things. I actually have a link that gives you guys 2 weeks free now. It was 2 months, but now it's 2 weeks free. So check that out if you're interested. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.